You're gonna double your hours in your oil changes. I also have on your Ruby-Tran. Ruby-Tran, you guys might not be familiar with unless you have like a 96 diesel or a 144-inch diesel. You know, an 8-foot mower or a 12-foot mower. Then we do have out there, they use a Kawasaki transaxle with a clutch, and everything is internal in it, so they use a special fluid for that. The diesels, 800 hours for an oil change, so you get a lot longer just because of the way those transactions are in those units. Hydro oil and filter changes, here's a little chart I have. You know, it's on your lasers and on your radiuses, your Quest. It's one filter per side. It's basically about 2 quarts per side on all those units. It's like 1.7, 1.8 basically, but we say 2 quarts. One filter on each side. So if you're gonna change your oil, make sure you change your filters. We have guys that drop your oil and don't change filters sometimes. Any questions on hydraulics so far, or hydraulic maintenance? It's pretty basic stuff, guys. I'll talk about the hydraulic extension program that Exmark has, who's eligible for it and the benefits. This is something that gets overlooked a lot. And like I said, the most critical oil change is that first oil change. That's what we're trying to get out of there. That's what the hydraulic extension program really tries to drive in there. It's available for all your lasers, your radius units, whether they're commercial or residential, doesn't matter. If your laser has less than 300 hours, so a brand new laser, or if your radius has less than 100 hours, because the radius has a DC transaxle, a DC transaxle, their first oil change is 75 hours, because there's actual metal gears in there that are going to match, wear those gears out. So those units, their first oil change is 75. So if your radius has under 100, your laser has under 300, you're already in the program. But what you have to do with those units is you have to bring them back into the dealership and let the dealer change the hydro fluid in. And they'll file a warranty claim stating that they changed the oil on. It doesn't cost you, you're already going to buy the oil, you're already going to buy the filter, even if you're going to do it yourself. So you're going to be, you're going to pay half-hour labor. Maybe an hour at the most, depending on the unit. But that little bit of labor that you're going to pay, they're going to document that oil change. It's going to take your hours from 1,250 up to 2,500 hours. So you commercial guys that put on all these hours mowing, I mean, you can hit 1,250 within 2 years, but that mower's got a 5-year warranty on it. But your hydraulics are out in 2 years if you don't stay in that program. So it's critical to on all those radiuses and the lasers, have the dealers change that oil for you, okay? Because that keeps you in that program. Those hydros are expensive. Radiuses, if you got an E-series, it takes your hydraulic, it goes from 500 hours to 750, your radius S from 750 to 1,000, and your axis from 1,000 to 1,500 hours. So it increases your hours. That's how much we know that those oil changes make sense. You know, they're very critical. Any questions on hydraulics? Probably go along. We're going to talk some basic engine maintenance and service. Engine RPM, very important. I know a lot of you guys like more RPM, give me more RPM. I want horsepower and RPM. I agree with that to a certain extent. Your engine RPM is very important. It ensures your proper blade tip speed and cut quality. It helps maintain the cooling efficiency of the engine and allows for maximum transport speed. Any way to check it is with tachometer. We have a chart here of different RPMs depending on the basic motors. Exmark's most of them are on there from 3,300 to on the lower to 3,750. Our diesels you'll see are very low. The diesels here, this Yanmar here is a turbo diesel. It only has to run at 2,600 RPM. And this other diesel here is a common rev diesel that runs 3,000 RPM. But if anybody around diesels, you know, diesel doesn't need RPM, it has lots of torque. So we don't run high RPM on those. Poor maintenance can lead to dirt ingestion, low power, or shorter engine life. Can affect the quality of cut due to low power. Always follow your recommended maintenance. I wish you guys could see these a little bit better. This is a fuel filter cut apart. Well, the inline plastic fuel filters. It's actually got grass in it. I don't know how you get grass in there unless you're jamming it down the thing. Or a lot of guys leave their fuel cans on the front of the trailer. They got grass. They stack grass in the front of the nose of the trailer. They don't have their gas cans. You go down the road, that grass is swirling. It's going right to the gas cans. And you put it in the lawnmower. So that and cottonwood. That stuff gets in there a lot too. Plugs up your filters. There's also air filters. This is a bunch of grass wrapped around the air filters. This is a heavy duty air cleaner, just packed in grass. There's in here, it's a little hard to see, but that's grass screen on top of the mower. I mean, you guys get done mowing, you look back there at the mower, there's weeds, there's grass, there's sticks stuck on the top of that grass screen. Make sure you clean those off. Make sure the holes are open into that. That's the only way your motor's going to cool is coming to the top of that screen. Air filter maintenance. Inspect and clean air filters. So remove your air filter, inspect it for damage. Look at all the sealing areas. Look inside the air filter, see if you see any dirt. If there's any dirt debris inside that air filter, you got a problem. If you don't solve that problem quickly, you're going to end up dusting your motor, and you're going to have some serious problems. If it has the foam-free filter, make sure you wash it with soap and water. Allow it to dry. Don't oil it unless the manufacturer wants you to oil it. You know, some of those pre-filters are oiled, some aren't. So every day you should be checking your oil. Some units may require twice daily, depending on the hours you put on. Check your pre-cleaner on all your air filters. Every week you should be changing your oil filter. You know, roughly 40 to 50 hours a week if you're mowing commercially. Make sure you change the filter every time. I don't like it every other time, but change the filter every time you change your oil. Every month you should be checking your paper filters, replace them if you need them, blow out all the empty cooling fans. You know, on top of your motors, there's little covers got to open up. I hope the Kawasaki guy covers that, but there's little covers that you open up. You need to blow those out. Just real easy. So long you don't need any tools. If you open up those covers on top of your motor, blow out all the cooling fans, get all the grass out of there. There's some of the units have oil coolers underneath there, and you need to keep those clean. Every year you should replace all your filter elements, spark plugs, fuel filters, both that thing. Most of these units are all air-cooled engines, unless you're talking about like a diesel or a liquid-cooled Kawasaki or something, but most of them are air-cooled. That air has to be free-flowing. It's critical to the cooling process, so make sure you keep your fans and screens clean. Remove any loose debris. If you see an oil leak, fix it. If you spill a little oil when you're putting it in there, make sure you clean it off. You know, don't let that oil sit on that motor. It will attract dirt. It will attract grass. What impairs cooling? Like I've already said, grass gets packed in there, dust and debris, all your oil-covered fins. Use compressed air to blow that stuff out. Don't be using water. A lot of guys like to use water. It's the end of the season if you want to wash the machine, wash it carefully. You don't want to blow a lot of water into a lot of seals and stuff like that. If you do wash your mower, start it and run it. That includes the deck. Let it run for 15 minutes. Because if you're spraying off a mower, whether it's the cutter housing, whether it's the hydraulics, whether it's any of the bushings, whether it's the motor, when you spray that off, the water gets in there. And if you don't get that water out, you put that away for summer, for the winter, I should say. When you bring it up next spring, that water's been sitting there all winter long, causing problems. You'll have rust, you'll have all sorts of stuff, especially cutter housing. Those things, at the end of the day, there's a lot of people that want to spray their mowers off with water. Those cutter housings are warm. You spray that with cold water, even if they're sealed bearings, they will pull water into it. So the only way to get water out of those is start it back up when you're done washing it and let it run the deck. 15 minutes, let everything get back up at temperature, get all the water back out. Signs of overheating, burnt oil, you can smell that stuff. discolored or deformed plastic parts, you pull that dipstick out, it's black on the end, or it's bent, twisted, melted. Pretty obvious something's going on, or something, you're overheating that motor for some reason. You may see that, hey, it worked all fine all day, mowed just great, I didn't have any power loss or anything like that. But you start seeing burnt components like that, there's damage being caused. You're just not to the point where you got failure yet. Side to side, something's changed, real simple stuff. Tire pressure, one of the biggest things. I mean, you have a flat tire on one side. If you have a lawnmower that you've got a ball tire on the left back rear, and you put a brand new tire on the right side, that's going to be uneven. That machine is going to be uneven. One, it's not going to track right, because the fur covers of the new tire is bigger than the fur covers of the ball tire. So it's not going to track right, your deck's going to lean. So sometimes changing one tire, you're sort of causing yourself some problems. Deck damage, machine not sitting level. Deck clip components, they wear out. Whether they're chains, whether they're pins, stuff like that, they get bent. You can bend the deck, dull blades, damaged spindles. Most of the time we have a cut quality issue like that, or we think something's bent. What we're going to do is have to put new blades on. And if you take the blade and you spin them so the tips line up, as long as the blade tips line up within the thickness of the blade, then it's not worth fixing. But if you put those spindle blades around and they're like this, they're off, and one of them's bent. The spindle's bent, deck's bent. It's not the end of the world, it's actually pretty easy to fix them. If you have any other problems, the other can help you with those things. In most cases, making deck adjustments is like the last thing you want to do, because those decks hang fork positions, and you start turning wrenches here and there. If you don't understand where you're at in the deck, you can really throw it out of whack. And then you go to lift it, it won't go to transport mode, it won't go to different things. So making a deck adjustment is like the last thing you want to do. So check the easy things first. Like I said, tire pressure out of the factory, we set at 12 to 14 psi is where the tires should be. The tire circumference should be within half an inch. When you get a brand new lawnmower, you'll see on the side of the tires, it'll have like a pencil, it'll have a writing on it. They actually measure every tire for the go on a lawnmower before they put the go. Real easy, if you want to know if your mower's sitting right, go put it on a piece of cement, kick the front wheels. Does one spin real easy, or they both seem like they got the same amount of pressure? If they both feel like they got the same amount of pressure, then they're probably pretty good when it comes to your tires. When we're talking deck rate, this is exactly what it is. How we measure rate is we put your 3 blades front to back. You take your middle blade, very front cutting edge, and very center of the deck. You measure that from the blade tip to the ground. And then you also go to your outside blade, you measure the rear of the blades to the ground. And on a 60-inch deck, we like to see 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch. Exmark sets their mower decks at 3 inches. So when we set a deck up, that center blade tip will be at 2 7/8, and the back of the 2 outers will be 3 1/8. So that makes it 3 inches in the center of the deck. So it's 3 inches. If we set it 3 inches, we want a 1/4 inch rate over 3 inches. Is how it's working. Set it there. So that deck will be set at 3 inches when you're at a 3 inch cutting height. That's how we do it. That allows the air to come on the back of the deck, gets you the deck, more airflow, better discharge.